See, it's one thing to start a business and then you being a founder and all those stuff, that is a different kind of shoes that you're wearing. But once you're coming in as a new person into the company, it was interesting to observe how the new management is able to come in, gain the trust of the employees, and then take it from there to that next level, and how they're operating it. And that also paved way for me to where what I'm doing right now, because once I observed that, what I realized was, yes, obviously starting a company from scratch and then building it to where it is great, but it's also a long, very difficult process. When you buy a company, some of this hard work is already done by somebody else.
You're listening to Before You Buy or Sell a Business, hosted by Jared Johnson, the top SBA lender in the country. On this show, we break down business acquisitions, talk to industry pros, and provide real-world advice for buyers and sellers.
All right, welcome back to Before You Buy or Sell a Business. I'm happy to have Sathya here today. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing good, Jared.
As well as you can for running a business after, a couple months of acquiring it.
Yes. Yeah, it's been like a long journey, but it was a fast journey.
Yeah. All right,
Yeah.
cool. Well, hopefully we can get into it today. We can talk about your transaction. We can pull out some advice for others that are looking for a business or looking to buy one. Maybe we can start off, give us a little bit about your background. Where'd you grow up? Did you go to college? What'd you do before you got into this?
I'm originally from India, but I've been in United States, primarily in Texas, for the past 25 years. So I moved to this country around in the beginning of 2000. And I'm actually a major in mechanical engineering, but then once I came here, I kind of switched into technology field, and I was working in that field for a while. I did my master's and education here at Texas Tech University. And after that, I continued working in the technology field for almost 10 to 15 years, I guess. And during that time, around the 2012, 2013 period, I had an opportunity to start a business, and I co-founded a technology company. It's called File Cloud. And it grew from, it was a startup essentially. It was a standard technology company. It's a file sharing company, similar to Dropbox, but it's more of an enterprise file sharing system. And that was a long journey essentially. Took 10 years almost, and to grow a company from the beginning to where it was at this point. So at the end of 10 years almost, we started attracting some investment. So once we started attracting some investment, I thought that, okay, that could be the right time for me to just exit out. That essentially paved the way for where I am right now. So during that process of exit, I had a chance to go through as a seller of a business. I was trying to sell the business. So I had a chance to work with all the private equity investment firms to see how this whole transaction process is going. And as a business owner, you don't get a lot of chances to buy and sell businesses. You're just going to, most of the time that you're going to spend is on operating the business, unless you are interested in just buying and selling business. At least from my journey's point of view, I'm more interested in buying it, operating it, developing it. And that's where I am at this point. And that gave me the background to see firsthand how these transactions happen, from buying a business, and from a seller standpoint, what are the things that I need to take care of, and things like that. And that essentially brought me into this field where I am at this point.
Yeah, it's a great background. We don't often get people that had already, started, grown a business, sold it, and then looking for kind of their next venture. So it makes it a little bit more interesting. So you sold it, and when was that? Was that 2023 that you
This
sold
was
it?
in 2020, 2021.
Okay.
It was not a full sale, essentially. It was more of
Mhm.
an investment that came into the company. And
Okay.
that gave me an opportunity for me to work with the new management for 2 years, observe how they are able to transition the business. See, it's one thing to start a business, and then you being a founder and all those stuff, that is a different kind of a shoes that you're wearing. But once you're coming in as a new person into the company, it was interesting to observe how the new management is able to come in, gain the trust of the employees, and then take it from there to that next level, and how they're operating it. And I had the chance to work with them for a little more than 2 years. I was working with them. I was helping them in the transition. So that gave me a first-hand view of how this kind of transition happens, and that also paved way for me to where what I'm doing right now. Because once I observed that, what I realized was, yes, obviously starting a company from scratch and then building it to where it is good, is great, but it's also a long, very difficult process. When you buy a company, it's some of this hard work is already done by somebody else. And I'm not saying that it's just easy to buy a company and then operate it, but at the same time, it is a little bit less risky to buy an established company compared to starting one. So that's what I think is a fair way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, you have a very interesting perspective outside of what most people have. So that's great. I think it probably helped you be a little bit more empathetic to the seller and kind of how what they had done on your transaction and building a business, and then obviously it gave you a good opportunity to understand how to transition the business successfully because you had been through that process. So that's really interesting. So you and I got connected in January of 2024, so a little bit over a year and a half ago. We had a couple good discussions. You were looking at transactions. The one that you actually closed on, I went back and looked, and you actually sent it to me to take a look at exactly 1 year ago today.
Oh,
So I
really?
thought that was kind
Okay.
of funny. Yeah, I went and looked
Uh-huh.
back and was doing a little bit of research, and I said, "Hey, that's really cool. It was exactly 1 year ago." So just from kind of refreshing your memory as well, I'm sure you've dealt with so many things since then, but you kind of brought it over and said, "Hey, what do you think?" We took a look at it. You and I tried to kind of game plan a little bit on structure. One thing you did that was kind of interesting that not everybody does is you introduced me to the listing broker right away. I was able to reach out with him, talk to him, kind of get a good understanding of where they were at in the transaction. I was also able to vouch for you that I had already been working with you for several months and had been able to review some of your information and that you were a very well qualified buyer. So, from there, maybe kind of walk us through what stuck out to you on this deal that you liked, and then ultimately what gave you enough, of a good feeling to make an offer.
I know that, I mean, that is interesting. I mean, I did not know that it was exactly a year since I introduced this deal to you. But even before we came to this point, I know that we both have been talking for multiple months. Even before that, I remember that I started my acquisition journey around the month of January of 2024, beginning of Jan 2024. And then in the first couple of months, it was more a little bit of learning to see what I really want. Because there are a few things that you really, really want to nail down before you jump into this thing. Obviously, you need to know the location that you're targeting. You don't want to be stuck in a location like I want to be targeting only specific city. And that means that ideally you want to get a job rather than getting a looking for a business. I mean, if you're lucky enough to get something like that, that would be great. But most likely than not, if you're interested in buying and operating a company, you should be flexible to move to certain other places too. So the location and the sector or the business that you want to target and all those things. And once you go and nail those two, then you got to have a characteristics of the business. What I mean by characteristics is what kind of EBITDA you're targeting, what kind of revenue numbers are you targeting, how many employees you want to be able to manage. So those kind of things, that characteristics of the business, some kind of recurring revenue or repeating customers. What is that characteristics? Is that something that you want to nail down? So once you nail down those location, the sector that you want to target, and the characteristics, then the things will get a little more clear for a, a buyer or a searcher, whoever who is doing it, to see, and you can make an offer on it. And initially, you are going to spend a little more time in filtering out all these things. But when I came across this particular deal, and I believe that even before I came to this deal, I was mentioning that I've been communicating with you, meaning I have been coming across few deals that I used to send to you quickly. I mean, I would kind of put some kind of a model or whatever it is, see the debt service coverage ratio, whatever it is, if it is all satisfying. But if I am really interested in making an offer, I usually just quickly send over that and get a quick opinion from you. Unless otherwise it's in a time crunch, I usually wait for what you gave me, because and that carries a lot of weight. I mean, if I know that this numbers are going to work, then I can confidently make an offer. So once I came to this particular deal, and I did all the basic preliminary diligence, and at some point you have to go through some series of steps. But at some point you're going to go and talk to the seller, and at that point you got to be quick, make a quick at least indication of interest, some kind of a basic offer. And at that point, I would actually get a lender that you trust to quickly look over that numbers. Just make sure it's all okay, and then send that. And if the seller accepts it, then that's going to be a good starting point for you. And that's what happened for in my case.
So on the one that you ended up moving forward with, what was maybe one or two things that you really liked about the business?
The first thing is you should be able to trust the seller. Once you talk, well, the first time that you're going to have a chance to talk with the seller, that is going to give you a lot of indication what kind of business it is. I mean, you don't want to hear everything rosy, everything is all great and stuff like that. You want the seller to be upfront with you of some of the challenges, some of the problems that they have. And that is going to come only when you talk to the seller. But before you talk to the seller, obviously, you're going to have a chance to look at some of the basic things. I mean, you don't want to spend a lot of time looking at some deal that's not going to work out for you. You want to have some kind of a thumb rule that you just want to quickly eliminate. The couple of things that I usually look for is customer concentration. That is one of the key things that I usually look for. If there is going to be almost like 60-70% coming from one single customer, then that's going to be a huge risk for a buyer. And what kind of you really do not know what kind of relationship the seller had with that particular customer. So that is one thing. And the customer churn, how many customers are dropping off after every year. That is another thing that you want to have a reasonable. And these things you can go out and find out using the teaser or the sim that the broker is going to provide you with. And I'm assuming that going through the broker is the best way here. That's my opinion. Instead of you going and sourcing a deal by yourself, which is going to be a lot more of heavy lifting, and it's going to have a lot more work, in my opinion. If you go through and finding something on your own, doing all the outreach on your own, is a lot more work, because the brokers have already done a lot of work for you, and why not take that advantage there?
Yeah, that's some people go back and forth on that. I tend to agree with you for the most part, especially if you have a good broker. There, of course, people looking for a business, there's ones that aren't doing a great job with that. And then, of course, there's brokers that aren't fantastic as well. But what I've noticed in my experience is when there's not somebody in the middle or somebody who's already put a lot of the information together to give you a clear picture, it can be really challenging. So in this case, I think you had a really good broker that understood the transaction. He was patient, was willing to kind of work with you, help with the negotiations and everything, rather than just kind of slapping stuff together and hoping it worked. So, in that case, you had a really good broker that was working on it. So it definitely makes sense to do that. So once you felt comfortable with the seller, felt comfortable with, maybe some concentration risk, couple other things with the business. You decided to start negotiating with an LOI. Were there pieces of that LOI or of the overall structure that you felt were very important to you, or maybe something that was an absolute had to happen in order for you to move forward?
The brokers sometimes expect only the LOI. They don't like to even see the IOI, the indication of interest. That's more of a very slightly informal compared to an LOI
Mm-hmm.
stage. But I ideally like to go and send a IOI, even if the broker or the seller is not interested to see it. The reason is that that will give you a quick heads up on whether they are even interested to see some numbers that you are even providing. If it is going to
Mm-hmm.
be way off, then you don't have to spend the time writing up an LOI, because LOI is detailed. An IOI can just run in one page, 1.5 page, and you are done with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it can just be a simple document, an IOI. But for an LOI, obviously, it's going to be detailed. In LOI, to answer your question, a few couple of things is obviously the structure. The structure is essentially the fact that you have the asset sale or a stock sale, right? That is a primary determination for a lot of different things. I mean, each has its own advantages. I mean, you should be able to find a lot of literature on the online, which is suitable for what. I went with an asset sale primarily because it gives a lot more of a tax benefit in the long run if you're going to run that business for a while. But a stock sale also might make sense in some scenarios, especially if you have some contracts that's going to be very difficult to transfer and things like that. So actually, when I sold the business, my business, it was more of a stock. It was not like an asset sale, more of an investment. It's really not a sale though. But in this case, I did an asset sale. But in the LOI, I made a point to tell the seller that to be open for a stock sale too, because I'm not sure what I'm going to find in the due diligence phase. If I'm going to find a lot of contracts that's going to be requiring a huge amount of heavy lifting to move it, then I have to move to a stock sale, and I need to evaluate that. Yes, some of this contracts and other stuff you will be able to find out by the questions and answers that the seller is providing beforehand, but sometimes it might not be the real fact, because seller might not even be sometimes seller is also not aware of these things, because the fact that you have to remember, many of these sellers are selling their business for the first time. They have been a buyer, they have been an operator for a while, but they are not selling it. They have never been in that seat, so they are not thinking in all these angles the way that you will be thinking and worried about. So, if possible, I would prefer you to go out and have an asset sale, but be open to a stock sale, or stock sale, but be open to an asset sale. If you can just put some kind of footnote in the LOI, which is what I did, that is better. So, I did an asset sale, but I had an option for a stock sale if needed. And the next critical thing in an LOI, at least for me, in my business, was working capital. The working capital, at least the seller wanted to have a deeper understanding of how that working capital is going to be calculated. I mean, you can give some kind of a basic guideline, I mean, assets minus liabilities or whatever it is to get that working capital. But he wanted a little more detailed so that it avoids more confusion later on, which I think ended up for the better for me too, because that gave me an option to quickly see the balance sheet, the numbers, and all those stuff, and then I gave an approximate working capital target, and but that is not a fixed target that I'm going to look for. And he was open to it. I mean, once during the due diligence, if I find something, we are open to move the target. But I actually set a working capital target in the LOI itself, which we both agreed on, based on the last 12 months of the balance sheet. So that helped a lot during the due diligence, because from a lot of my conversations, I've always heard from the other brokers and other people that the working capital is a thorny issue. It could be a thorny issue, especially because it could run into multiple thousands of dollars, right? So you have to be aware of that conflict. And once you buy a business, you want to have a reasonable, good relationship with the seller. You don't want to have some with a bad vibe. So this working capital true up is something that you're going to do in the end after the sale is completed. And having the relationship is key. So in order to maintain the relationship, these are the couple of things that you want to be aware of is this. Be open to asset and stock sale if preferably. Sometimes the seller might not agree for a asset sale or a stock sale. If that's the case, then you just have to do what you have to do. But if they are open, then just let them know that to be open. Yeah, and then working capital.
Yeah, those are very important things. As you mentioned, and we've talked about it quite a bit, and I'm happy to kind of beat people over the head. That working capital is definitely, I would say, if not the most important thing, it's up there, top two or three things. When you're taking over the business, there's so many things that you're going to have to pay for, so many things that can go wrong. There can always be delays on getting paid, so on and so forth. Working capital is very important. So if you can build it into the transaction and then also either get some from the bank or have a good amount of personal cash available if needed, it's going to set you up for success and put you in the right spot. So thank you for saying that. The other side, yeah, definitely be open to both sides. Of course, one thing that I've seen other buyers do, if it does switch to a stock sale, they've usually been able to go back to the seller and say, hey, go ahead and do your analysis on what your tax is going to look like. You may even be able to get a lower price by switching to stock, because most of the times it's going to be a benefit to the seller by switching to a stock instead of an asset sale. So I've even seen buyers do that from time to time. So kind of walking through the transaction, and I realized we didn't even talk about what type of business it was. So maybe you could give us just a high level view of what the business does that you ended up buying first.
It's a light construction equipment dealer and authorized service center. So we go and we have a lot of relationship with a lot of different suppliers or the vendors, and some things like Wacker Noise and Still, Multiquip. There are almost like more than 20-30 vendors that we work with. And it's like similar to a car dealership, right? I mean, you have a car dealership, you have a car. Well, how does a car dealership make money? You go and buy cars, sell cars, and sometimes when they go and service cars, they're going to make money on adding parts, selling parts, and stuff like that. So it's the same thing, but we do it for light construction equipment. So that kind of gives a little more clear picture here. So there is a lot of companies out there. It is a very fragmented industry. It's obviously you have bigger players here who are in the rental business, like United Rentals or Sunbelt Rentals and stuff like that. And you also have a lot of these small players here like us who are more of a service center, repair shop, and they also sell parts, they also sell equipment, things like that. So this is a business where you got to have a reasonable understanding of an inventory management, a reasonable understanding of at least be able to get a good feel for the mechanical aspects of the equipment that you're going to deal with. So even though you don't have to be an expert there, you're going to have your employees who are going to be helping you there, but you still want to be able to understand some kind of have a high level overview of what it is and stuff like that. So that's a business, and this is located in Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, and primarily in the Fort Worth area. And there's just one location at this point, and when you look for a business like this, you want to see what kind of value you can bring to a business like this. Because my background is in technology. So how am I going to run a business with this background? That the reason I bought this business also is kind of a little bit more of a personal reason to it. I mean, my family had owned and operated machine shops over the last. So I grew up in this kind of an atmosphere for a long time. So that influenced me in this. And then before I took over the ownership of this, I had an opportunity to work for a company where I used to sell all these resorts, all the portals and stuff like that for booking, online booking. And so that is also an inventory management system, but it's more of an online system, meaning like a resort is still in a room in a resort is still an inventory. So that kind of a combination of all these things gave me the confidence to jump into this and then take it over. And I also have a mechanical engineering background in it. So the terminologies and technologies is not something that's totally new for me. So this has a little bit of a specialized nature to it, but at the same time, if you have a general idea, you have a good understanding of the finances, the inventory management, and yeah, a little bit of a technology background, there is nothing stopping you from taking this business and growing it. So, as I said, you have to understand what kind of value you can bring to this business. So when I was looking for a business, I wanted a business which had a good, strong traditional sales, but but where I can add value is through operational excellence, online marketing, and bringing in financial management to it, which is exactly this business needed when I started looking for it. So that's attracted me to this business more. So you are strong in something, and that business is going to need that when you go and take over. That is a strong fit for you, if if I can put it like that. And but at the same time you don't want to buy a job, meaning like you should not be the only person who's going to be doing that. You should have support of employees and stuff like that.
Yeah, so the business really made sense for you because it had a good, foundation. It checked some of those boxes. You obviously have a good understanding of, with an engineering background, you've worked in, that industry or grew up in a similar industry, but you can take a lot of your experience, especially from your last business, and sort of implement it once you took over. So it ended up being a really good mix of already doing well and checking a lot of the boxes, but you can add value yourself. So that,
Yes, yes. And then the digital transformation is one thing that can kind of help in any business. I think,
mhm.
especially businesses that have been owned by people who are old or people who are baby boomers who are trying to retire at this point. There is a good chance you might have a chance to go out and improve the value of the business, bring in value through digital transformation. If you have a reasonable understanding of the computers and the software and all those stuff, obviously the software that we are using here can be improved, things like that. So how we can go and add value to those kind of things, and how that's going to improve the productivity. So think if you think through all those things, then you will have a small growth path in your hand that will give you a little more confidence for you to jump into something like this.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think it also it gives you something to continue to be excited about. If your specialty and if your expertise is in improving and in technology, and you come into a business that's very antiquated or maybe not completely up to speed, or if you're constantly looking at things going, hey, I know where I could improve this and I have the capability of doing it, it's going to keep you motivated, it's going to keep you excited. You're constantly able to improve things, and at the end of the day, if you continue to make those improvements, you're going to end up setting yourself apart from your competitors, which ultimately gives better customer experience, helps with your margins, everything else makes sense. So it's great to be able to buy a business and then see what you could do immediately to improve upon it.
Yes, yes, that's the rewarding part aspect of it. I mean, obviously, when you're owning a business, you get the freedom, you get all those advantages of just owning than working for somebody else. And on top of it, if you are having the opportunity to grow the business organically, it's more difficult to grow it organically than just going and buying a business. But
Mm-hmm.
you got to give it a shot. You got to give the best you can to see how much you can grow. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. So I know during the transaction, it was fairly easy transaction for us to approve. But I believe during the process, you continued to kind of follow up and check on how they were doing year to date, how the inventory was going, all of that. I believe there was a couple minor changes that you may have had during the process, but you ended up, getting a fair amount, multiple for you, closed on the transaction. wasn't too difficult, but you definitely took your time and did your due diligence and everything. Once you took over, and I looked this up as well, it was kind of interesting. You closed almost exactly 1 year from the day that you and I first started talking to. So it took you about a year to find it, which is actually fairly quick.
Huh?
A lot of people that are searching for a business end up taking 2-3 years to be completely done. So I think you did a good job really making sure you understood what you were buying, made sure the transaction was fair for everybody, and you put yourself in a really good position that once you took over to buy the business, you'd be ready to go. So you were able to get the transaction done. What happened from there?
Just to give a quick background there, it took almost like 6 months for me to find that business, and then almost 6 months to close, almost five to 6 months to close. It was a little long time to close. Ideally, I have heard that you should be able to close it in 3 months, 4 months, and stuff like that. I
Mm-hmm.
think you can do it, but in my case, for various reasons, it took a little longer, almost five months to close, I believe. But as you near the closing time, there are a couple of things that you want to be aware of to make sure that the things don't fall apart. So the three things, at least for me in this particular business, that I was concerned about was three things. One was the relationship with the vendors, because to be frank, I did not expect there was a lot of vendors when I went into LOI. I thought there were like three or four vendors who will be, working with them, and that's primarily it, and I can just go. But even after LOI, I thought it was like 10 vendors. And then as the months closer to the closing, more and more vendors are coming out, and then almost like 20, 25 vendors, 30 vendors, 35 vendors at some point. But many of those vendors are all small. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we don't do a lot of business with them, but there are a few vendors who are really, really big. So I was a little bit worried as I was coming close to that timeline. I was worried, how am I going to handle all these vendors? Because I was just thinking three or four, especially with an asset sale. Now I have to go back and then talk with all these vendors and then change the name. So that was a little bit of a worry for new agreements and stuff like that, which is a little bit of a which was a little bit of a worry for me. But at that point, it was actually too late for me to change it to a stock sale too, because I already moved into the asset sale, and then it was now at that point it was a little bit of a too late. So I just went with the asset sale, and it turned out to be all right. So I was able to slowly change all and the seller was very cooperative. Seller was very understanding of this whole thing, and he helped me out in transitioning out. So that is the reason why I'm telling you, a good relationship with the seller makes a lot of difference. The next other thing that I think I need to be worried about is the customers. The customers also was a little bit of a worry for me. Whether are they going to stick around, and what am I going to do if they don't stick around? But I believe that also kind of settled down once I started coming in. I did not talk with the customers before the sale. I did not talk with any customers before the sale. I did talk with vendors, few of those main vendors before the sale, but I did not talk with any customers. In fact, 1 month before the sale, 1.5 months before the sale, I think I kind of started talking with the vendors. And the customers, I did not talk with any of them until the sale, but after the sale, I think slowly I got introduced, and that was a little more of much more easier than I anticipated, because these guys are repeating customers. They are looking for somebody who's a trustworthy company, who can value them, and who also can go and meet the needs. And as long as there are people here and the company is able to do that, they really don't care. They just want the job done, and their job done in a right way, in the best way. And as long as we have people here who are doing that, then that's all matters. And the final thing is the employees itself, right? So the one thing that you really want to do is to build your trust with the employees. You don't want to come here and then be the know-it-all person, start changing all the things that you think you can change, whether you know it or not. Sometimes you might already have some background in that industry because you might have been working in that industry before. And even in that case, in my case, I was not working in this industry before. But even if you have a good understanding, good background in that, I wouldn't come into a company that has been operating for 10, 20 years with a certain model, then come here and change everything overnight. That's
Hmm.
not going to fly well
Right.
unless you want to totally disrupt the company.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that that you gain the trust of the employees. So that will take some time, and once that employees' trust is gained, that could follow various ways. I mean, you have to ask them what they really want, have some one-on-one with them, or talk to them informally, and then make yourself approachable to them, things like that. And once all those things are done, then they will open up. And once they open up, you'll really understand what they really want. And once they are trusting you, at that point, and frankly, you need some time to really understand whether that your changes are going to really work in that atmosphere.
Hmm.
I mean, so you need some time to really understand that. And then once you get all those understanding, at that point, you can bring in your changes slowly if needed, as needed. There is no big rush, come here, immediately start changing everything, disrupting it, unless that's your business model. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it doesn't need to, right? Or you need to pay attention long enough to then make a decision if it's something that needs to be changed. So, yeah, that's some great advice. So, all right, so it's been about 6 months. What's next?
Yeah, currently my goal is to grow this company, and currently, as I said, there are a few things. I mean, there are a few things that I planned before I came into this, which is in growing this company. Some of these places, digital transformation, making sure that people here, a lot of people here do not know that we are doing working on certain equipments. A lot of people, a lot of customers don't know, even though they come here, and educate those customers. We need to market our company a little more. So that is currently what I'm trying to do. We have been doing some advertisements, smaller advertisements to see if it is working, whether we're getting any ROI and stuff like that. And once we're doing primarily doing traditional advertisement, on not much of online at this point. So that is another area that we need to explore. So improve the marketing, and then maybe at some point have a person to go and have some outreach, because I did hire one other person in order to bring up to speed to make sure that everything is okay. But the plan is to grow the company, and the growing itself is through some things like digital transformation, online marketing, and trying to get some outside salesperson at some point, grow it. And if everything works out, why not try think about opening up in a different location and see if that's going to make some sense. But at this point, the plan is to just understand and grow the business.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think those are really good things to focus on. So, I've been asking people this question lately, so I'm kind of curious to see what your thoughts are. But who should buy a business, or who should be a business owner? What type of person? Because we're getting people that are kind of saying, I want to buy a business, or I want to be a business owner, maybe start one. And maybe some people it's not the right fit. So, in your opinion, what type of person should be a business owner?
If you want to be a business owner, there is a fancy aspect to it, and there also something that is not much fancy that you would like to talk about. I mean, you in a business like the one that I bought, you have to be willing to get your hands dirty. Since because you're a owner, you cannot go out and just sit in your room and then just keep doing what you're doing. You have to be able to get your hands dirty. You should be okay with that. And yeah, a person who is going to be a business owner, obviously he should value his independence more. Okay, he should value the independence. He should value the freedom that he's going to get in this. And they should be willing to go ahead and wear a lot of different hats.
Hmm.
So they cannot be a specialist. They can be a specialist, but they should be they should be willing to wear a lot of hats, and you have to have a good, reasonable understanding of the general management. If you are not going to be interested in general management, if that is not your cup of tea, then the business, small business or the business ownership is not going to be a good fit. You have to have a reasonable understanding of the financial aspect of the business. So you should understand what is the profit and loss statement, what does the balance sheet stand for. You can learn all those things, but those are things that you should, even though you're not going to look at it every day, but you should understand. You should be able to understand that. So the general management and the financial aspect is something that you have to understand it. Even though you are a technocrat, you have to understand those things, and you should be okay to handle those things in order to this thing. And at the same time, it's not just the being a business owner. Sometimes you will be a good fit for a business to run a business in a business A, but not a good fit for running a business B. That is also you have to be aware of. I mean, if you, let's assume that you hate totally a sales, you're not a salesperson, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and then you don't want to buy a business where you are going to be the only primary salesperson.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah,
So
people do
yeah,
do that. I think it's interesting. They kind of get themselves into some trouble. Yeah, makes sense.
yeah. So you want to make sure that obviously being a whether owning a business is good for you or not, that is one thing. But the second one is whether the business is going to be a reasonable fit for you. And third, especially when you're going to go and look to buy a business, as I said, you should be willing to relocate to some place or at least go around to other place. You can't just expect the business is going to come to your city where you are currently living, which might happen, but you should be willing to go to some other places too. That is another thing that you should be willing to do it. And the one good thing about the business is you are your own boss, but it doesn't mean that you are the only, you are not going to be answerable to anybody else. You will be answerable. You are answerable to vendors, you are answerable to customers, you're answerable to investors if you're going to get some investment, and you have to make sure that you are satisfying your employees, keeping them happy, and making sure everything is all going smooth. So it's it it people say that okay, you can do whatever you want, and but you're still answerable to a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Okay, two final questions. It's been great. I really appreciate all the advice you've been giving us. But question number one out of the last two, do you have a mentor or have you ever had a mentor?
I worked with I mean my in my previous work I had a couple of friends who I had worked with, so I always leaned back to them whenever I had to go ahead and have something to discuss. So you can call that as a mentorship. It's not really a mentor, but more of somebody who I can talk to. You need to have some kind of people like that. So some of them could be leaning on their investment group. I mean, if they're taking an investment, right? So obviously they can lean on them, they can ask them for all these sounding boards, discuss, talk to them about it and see if it makes sense. I took investment, but it was not the primary reason for the investment at all. So I had, as far as the mentorship is concerned, it's more of a collaborative thing. I kind of work with a couple of these people who I have had some relationship with. They are more of my friends who have been my colleagues and business colleagues, and that's where that mentorship ends. And obviously, if you are looking for other mentors who are subject matter experts, I won't call them as mentors, but you want to have some relationship with few other people. Just talk to them in that same industry. See whether just discuss with them. Just discuss about your business. They'll be open to discussing about their business. I have some certain people there who I usually lean on and then have a conversation with whenever I'm having some kind of a self doubt or some kind of a thing. Just have some conversations there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important. Okay, final question. What motivates you?
What motivates me to really find what I can do the best. So how far I can go.
Hmm, I
So
like
these
that.
are the kind of things that really motivates me. And business is, I mean, obviously the money makes a huge difference there. But in addition to it, what value you can bring to the business and to the employees and to the customers, so that makes a lot of difference here. So the thing that motivates me is every day you get a wake up and try to do the best you can. Control what is under your control. I mean, you cannot do things that is not under your control. You cannot do much, but whatever is under your control, try to do the best with that, and then leave the rest.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I really appreciate you coming on. I know you're really busy. You have a lot going on. It's been great, and I really appreciate it. I hope you'll call me sometime soon and let me know how you're doing, or if you're deciding to expand or do another acquisition. I'm always happy to help, and I'm glad to hear you're doing so well.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks, Jared. Appreciate
No
it.
problem. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thank you all for listening to Before You Buy or Sell a Business. If you found value in this episode, please follow the show, leave a positive review, and share it with someone. For more information, check out jaredwjohnson.com. We'll see you all next time.